Welcome to this introduction to activity management. Activity management is one half of the P module in Campus Solutions, the other part being PE, Program Enrollment. First thing to remember or to know is when we say activity, we're not talking about teaching here, we're talking about assessment, so assessment management. That's everything from creating, defining, configuring assessment records in curriculum through to adding marks to students, creating resit records for students, doing extenuating circumstances, posting marks back to student enrollment. Everything to do with assessment is managed in activity management. Okay. So we've got three key records that we use in activity management. We've got activity registry, activity management, which both come under curriculum. So we've got no students attached to them at this stage. And then the individual activity manager, oops, not management, IAM record, which is the student record. Now there's kind of a continual process of movement of information through these. So the activity manager record is essentially a copy of the activity registry record, but it's attached to a specific term. So we can add in specific data for that term. The IAM record, again, is a copy or contains a copy of the activity manager record, the assessment records, but also has other functionality, obviously, to add marks, results, and manage resits, etc. So those are the three records that you're going to be using in activity management. Right, let's just go have a brief introduction to each. So activity registry. So what do we do in the registry? This is where we define and configure the assessments for a course. Okay, and we have to have a course record created and available to attach the registry record to. They can't exist on their own. They're purely there to record the assessments for a given course. Okay, so that's the prerequisite for activity registry. These will be created manually. There's not going to be a massive batch creation of these. They're created manually as and when they're needed. So if we go through a normal curriculum process where we've created a new course, we would then create a new activity manager registry record to do that. This will be primarily done by school-based staff. So as at the moment, module records, which are now called course records, are normally created by school-based staff, and we expect that to continue. And I imagine that central curriculum staff will be supporting schools in doing this, so they may in certain instances create activity registry records themselves, but generally it's going to be school-based staff doing it. And then when? Okay, so the normal curriculum cycle starts in November, where we start creating and updating records for the following academic year. And that process normally finishes at the latest in September, just before the start of term. So this is the cycle. That's the sort of time period we're going to be using for registry records. Okay, the next record is Activity Manager. So this is basically, as I said, it's a version of activity registry records, but it's for a specific term, which means we can add term-specific data and configuration. That's mainly going to be due dates for assessments. We could update the exam period that we've configured in creating the manager records. We could create resit records configuration in the manager as well. Prerequisites, we have to have an activity registry record created, and we have to have classes created for the relevant course in the term that we want to create the manager records in. It's through the classes that we attach the manager record to the year. Okay, this is done. These records are created using the batch activity generator process. So this is a delivered Oracle process which we can run to create those activity manager records. And we're probably going to do that in one big bulk upload, bulk creation around the start of the autumn term. But it can be run again and again if we've got new records or we've made changes to the activity registry record that we want to reflect in the manager record. So initially, that initial creation is going to be done by IS staff, but then after that, it will be curriculum staff, probably in the school still, who can create records when the course has been created after this big initial bulk creation has happened, or if any changes have been made to the registry after that point. So it's all going to start around the beginning of the autumn term. Okay, finally we've got individual activity manager, IAM records. So these are the individual student records. Okay, so this is where we add marks for assessments to a student. We add submission dates. We do receipt management, creating receipt records and putting marks in. It's where we record extenuating circumstances information. Prerequisites. So we have to have the manager records created and we have to have students enrolled on the classes. Okay, and this is where we've got the link here, students on classes, activity manager records attached to classes. Bring them together, we can create our IAM records. And again, like the batch activity generator, we've got another one called IAM gen using student enroll. So this is again another delivered process which we can run to automatically create these IAM records. Now this is expected to be a scheduled activity, one that will probably run overnight every night throughout the year, which will pick up from the start of course enrollment. So it will pick up new student enrollments and create the IAM records for them. If students drop courses, then it will delete the IAM records for them. Okay, so those are the three key records and how and why they're used. So I've got a little diagram here to run through requisites and sort of how we work down the process. So first of all, we've got to have a course catalog record. And from that, we create our activity registry record. Then we have to create classes for that course in a particular year. We bring these two records together using the batch activity generator, and we create our activity manager records. Then we've got students enrolling on classes. Then we combine the class enrollments with the manager records in the IAM gen using student enroll, and we create our individual activity manager records. So that's how it works. So that's the end of that. So what we're going to look at now, we're going to run through the process from start to finish. Okay, so I've put this into Excel just because sorry, it's easier to manage in Excel. So up here we've got the timeline when an activity is happening. Then here we've got the action that's being taken. Here we've got where it's going to happen in the system, who's going to be doing it, and the sort of tasks that are involved underneath that action. So I'm going to run left to right through the whole process. Okay, so around November, between November to September, we create our course catalog records. So this is a prerequisite, which is why it's identified in orange. We'll do that in the course catalog page, curriculum management, and this will be done by school-based admin. So we're creating our base course record, we're creating offerings in that, we're adding our components, QAA data, everything that's needed for the course catalog record. Then in the same time period, we'll be creating our activity registry records that will be linked to the course catalog. That will be done in the activity registry and again by school-based staff. So we attach the activity registry record to the course, we configure exams, assessments, resits, all the information that's needed to do that. Right, pre-term start, we've got to create classes. Again, this is a student records process, but it's a dependency we have in activity management. So that's done through the schedule of classes part in curriculum management. It will be probably going to be a batch process run by IS. When those records are created, we can add instructor information, we can add enrollment capacity information. Okay, so we've got our classes and we've got our registry records. So just before the start of term, we can generate our activities, our activity manager records using batch activity generator. So this will be a scheduled process. It's going to be a one-off process that's run by IS. And then after that, we can run it again. If we have new courses or changes to courses, the activity registry records after that main big bulk process is run. So we're creating the activity manager records and we're doing links to the guides, links to the records to classes. Okay, so start of term, we've got our manager records, but now we can edit those, manage them in Activity Manager. Again, this is school-based staff, configuring the records, and the main activity they're going to be doing there is adding in due dates. Okay, so let's move along. Okay, so we've got autumn semester online module enrollment. Students are enrolling on classes, or they're being enrolled on classes. This is being done in self-service by the students. APT enrollment, this is a program enrollment process that will put them on their compulsory courses. And we may get instances where we're manually adding students through quick enroll. So any of these could be done by the students, school-based, admin who'll be doing the quick enrolls, and a scheduled process for APT enrolment. So that creates our student enrollments, which is another prerequisite within activity management. Then we generate the student activities. So this is creating those IAM records where we record the individual student assessment information, such as marks. We do that using the IAM gen by student enroll process. This will be a scheduled process. We're expecting this will probably run overnight. Every night it will create the student IAM records and delete records where they drop their enrollments. Okay, so we've run through the semester. Students have done their assessments. We've now got marks entering marks into those IAM records for the assessments. We've got one main route for this, activity rota or roster. This is where we can manually enter marks, and we can do that for one assessment, all the students. So it gives you a list of all the students, and you can bang the marks in. We're hoping there's going to be an Excel upload developed, certainly in time for Go Live 4, where we can upload marks directly in from a spreadsheet to save time. A Rogo integration is being built, which will bring in marks from Rogo. Moodle one's being looked at, but that's much more complicated, and we're not sure if and when that will be delivered. So expecting school-based staff going to be doing the activity rota manual entry. They're probably going to be doing the Excel upload as well, but the Rogo integration will obviously be managed by IS. So we're entering and uploading marks. At this point, we can put submission dates in as well. That can always come before marks entry, but it's done in the same place and through the same methods. And we can also enter extensions at this point into the IAM record for extenuating circumstances where a student's been given longer to complete an assessment because they've been ill or whatever. Okay, so then once the marks are in, we run result calculation. We've got a delivered process to do that called IAM result calculation in IAM, or we can do it in the IAM record directly. So this is a schedule process, and this will run and it will create the overall course mark based on the assessment marks, okay? And it will set the activity status, which basically says if a student needs to do a reset or not. Once that's run, we'll do result posting. This is another delivered process, IAM result posting. Another scheduled process, but it can also be run individually by school-based admin. And this posts student course marks back into student enrollments, into their course enrollment record, and it also posts it into their APT, which is their academic progress tracker and program enrollment. Okay, so I've just moved it along a bit. End of autumn semester still. And we've got manual management of resets. Now, reset records are generally going to be created at the end of the spring semester, but if there's a need to create them at the end of the autumn semester because you want maybe the students redoing an coursework item and they're going to do that at the beginning of the spring term, that will be done in the individual IAM record by student. So you can create the reset record manually. You can populate due dates, populate submission dates, enter marks. Okay. And then finally, at the end of autumn semester, we can manage extenuating circumstances. This is really identifying that a student's got EC. We can put a category in against their assessment record. We can log comments, and we can enter a revised due date. Okay, so moving along. Let's just move this across here. Okay, so we've got another student records dependency here. We're into spring semester online module enrollment, change of mind. So again, the students are enrolling or they're dropping courses and re-enrolling on others, which will be in self-service. Again, this could be a manual process as well in some instances. So we've got some change in enrollments happening. Those will be picked up by the IAM gen by student enrolled to create new IAM records and delete old ones when they've dropped spring semester courses. If they've got marks in their IAM records, then those records will not be deleted. Okay, so that's one thing to remember. Okay, moving into back to curriculum records. So at this point in the spring semester, around March, we're going to complete the updating or the initial updating of activity registry records for the following year. This will be done by school-based admins, so they're doing all the configuration in the activity registry records. And then those records need to be audited by central curriculums of quality assurance process. We will have queries delivered to do that, to help support that, which will be accessed in the Curriculum Management Center, Work Center that is. That will be done by central admin, and there may also be BI reports, hopefully to support that, because it is quite a complicated process. Okay, so we get to the end of the spring semester and we're going through this process again, marks entry through the same way, result calculation giving us our overall course marks, and result posting those marks to student records and to the student APT. Then what's going to happen? We're going to run a progression rule, a progression calculation, which is going to be a really complicated rule to work out whether the student has met progression requirements to move to the next term, and their degree calculation requirements if they're going to be awarded degree in their final year. So we run that, and what that does, it will update the activity status in IAM to change whether a student is resit eligible or not. So let's say they've got a course, they failed one assessment, but they've passed the course as a whole. They'll still get a resit indicator status against that failed assessment. And what the progression rule will do, it will just basically remove that and just say resit not eligible. So the student's not going to be down to do a resit for that. In addition, we will have compensated courses where students failed one or more courses, but they've met progression requirements to progress to the next stage without having to retake those courses. So they're called compensated courses. In that case, the progression rule will also update the activity status in those records to say the resit isn't eligible, they don't need to do a resit. Okay. Okay, so moving along again. Once that calculation has been done, then we can run a process called IAM resit evaluation. And what this does, it's a scheduled process that will be run by IAS, and it will create resit records where an activity, an assessment has been identified as a resit eligible, as a resit candidate. So it creates those records. At the same time, we can be managing extenuating circumstances. Once that's been done, we can do this. So we can log ECs, so we can put a type in against an assessment, so illness, hospitalization, whatever it is, we can put comments in. And at this point, now the resit process has run, we can create a first sit record. And all we're doing there is, in IAM, we have number of valid attempts, and we're just removing the original attempt as a valid attempt. This basically means the student goes back to their first sit rather than doing a resit. Right, then we've got first resit management. So we're entering marks. We may be configuring supplemental resits if that hasn't been done or entering. We're entering extended due dates, so the new due dates for any courseworks that are resits. And of course, we'll be running resit exams and entering marks. Once those marks are entered, then we go through this, we sort of loop back and we do the result calculation again. We do result posting again, back to student records and the APT. Run the progression calculation again to see if students can progress and update those resit activity status. Then we run the resit evaluation again. That will create any second resit records. And again, we may have some management of extenuating circumstances at the end of that as well. And then we get to second resit management. So we have some instances here where the student's got to do a second resit, but they're going to do it in attendance in the next year, in which case they need to be enrolled on a course for the next year, and we need to do a few other things in terms of managing that resit. If they're not doing it in attendance, then we just manage the resit in the normal way, but there's a bit more to think about. Okay, so that's running through the whole process from start to finish.